May 15th, 2011, and we're doing this interview with Robert Herron in Burbank, California. Could you please state your full name?
Robert Dwayne Herron.
And did you have any nicknames as a child?
No.
Okay. And could you tell us the date and year you were born?
September 23rd, 1924.
And what city were you born?
Los Angeles.
And your parents' names were?
Glenn and Mildred. They divorced when I was younger.
Okay.
And I went to live with my father and my grandmother in Los Angeles until I moved to Honolulu when I was in the first grade.
How did you get to Hawaii?
By boat, a Matson liner.
And who took you to Hawaii?
My father. He worked at Pearl Harbor dredging to make it for bigger ships to come in.
Where in Hawaii did you grow up? What island?
On Oahu, which is where Honolulu is.
What kind of memories do you have of growing up in Hawaii?
Great memories. Lived in a couple of hotels when I first got there, and then we moved to Waikiki Beach, and we lived in a plantation about a half a block off of Kalakaua Avenue, and it was pretty nice.
Did you go to Hawaiian school, or did they have a special kind of school for visitors?
They had a special school called English Standard Speaking School, so that we wouldn't all learn to speak Pidgin English instead of correct English, which I spoke Pidgin English anyway, but I could also speak correct English. I was there until I was 13, and my father died, and my grandmother came over and got me and brought me back to Los Angeles.
You came back, and that's where you live in what city?
I lived in downtown LA, around 9th and Vermont.
For how long?
For a year, and then I moved to Lomita and lived with my other grandmother.
So you moved around a lot?
You might say that.
Okay.
Until at that point in Lomita, I stayed there long enough to go through high school.
Did you graduate?
Yes.
What school?
Narbonne High School.
In Lomita?
In Lomita, which later moved to Harbor City.
Okay. And did you have any kind of scholarships? Were you going to college, or?
I had a scholarship, a track scholarship to USC if I went to Compton Junior College and made up my grades. But I went into the service at that time, so.
Why did you join the service?
Our whole football team was drafted.
Oh.
And I had the choice of Marines, Army, or Navy, and I took the Navy. 1943. I went to San Diego Naval Training School, Sound School. I was a sonar man. And I went to Stockton, California, and picked up the ship I was on, would be on for the rest of my Navy career. And it was a patrol craft sweep. It was a converted minesweeper that was mostly for anti-sub patrol, patrolling for convoys. And we did just about everything.
Did you see a lot of action?
Yes. Yeah, we sailed from Stockton up to San Francisco, and then went to the Marshall Islands, convoyed, and went to Saipan, invaded Saipan, and after the invasion we were there a while patrolling, Then we went back to the Marshall Islands, and then went to Tinian and invaded Tinian. And after that, we went to Guadalcanal and patrolled around Guadalcanal and keeping Japanese aircraft away and submarines. And we were there until we went to the Philippines, and we were in the Philippines for a few months. And from there, we went to Okinawa for the invasion of Okinawa, which was at the end of the war.
You left the Navy and you came back, and what was going on in your life at that point?
I went to work at Warner Brothers as a prop man.
Were you living, so you were living in LA?
I moved to the Valley at that time and lived with my stepdad and my mother.
Now, who is your stepdad?
He was Ace Hudkins, a famous fighter, prize fighter. And he taught me to box and to ride horses, because he had a stables with 200 head of horses, stagecoaches, buggies, hearses, wagons. We had a blacksmith and a wheelwright full time, and we rented to all the studios. And I went to work for him as a wrangler when I left the prop department at Warner Brothers, where I worked for 1 year.
Well, what year was that?
That was 46. I was in the prop department, and after that I went to work for my stepdad as a wrangler, taking horses to the sets for the actors and the cowboys to ride, and the stuntmen.
What was that like?
You got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, went to the barn, loaded your 5 head, saddled them, put them in a truck, took them to location, let the actors or whomever ride them all day. Then about 6 o'clock you loaded them, took them back to the barn and cleaned them off. By then it was about 8 o'clock, so it made for a long day. That was a typical wrangler's day behind the camera. That's why I wanted to get in front of the camera.
How did you prepare the horses for to work with inexperienced actors with horses?
Before they even came out to the barn, which we had eight acres at Coldwater and Sherman Way, and we had a dirt road that went to the river bottom. And I would take the actors down to the river bottom, down the dirt road, and get them used to riding the way you should for pictures, which is not allowing your horse to trot. It's hard to sit a trot. To make a horse stop where they want it in a certain place and not move around, and things like that. So all movie stuff. And after that, and before that, I would take the horses out individually and get the horses to work and calm down, because the horses that are, say, in a corral or a stall any length of time, the minute you let them out or get on them, they want to take off. So you have to ride horses a lot to prepare them to work in front of the camera.
Were a lot of these movie horses pretty good to work with?
They were great horses, just great. We had 200 to choose from.
And did you have your own horse?
I had my own falling horse called BCNU. BCNU. And he was my fallen horse, and he was an ex-thoroughbred. He used to be a racehorse. So he had to be ridden all the time, or he thought he was in the starting gate at Santa Anita. So which wasn't always fun when you're on a movie set. So anyway.
What's a falling horse?
A falling horse is a horse that's cued to fall at speed. You train them to fall when they're standing still, and then it'll walk, and then you pull the right rein when you catch them in stride, and then they fall down, and you have a nice sandy spot dug up for them. And they never get hurt. We had one falling horse that the barn owned that was 26 years old and was still falling.